Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted, as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
And there are a lot of them today.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, what a voyage we have lined up. For those of you joining us today, we are unpacking a world that, honestly, it feels like it was beamed backward in time.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at this dispatch from Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross. It's pulled from his incredibly influential newsletter, The Innermost Loop.
Right, which has, what, over 14,000 subscribers at this point?
Yeah, over 14,000. It's massive. And the dispatch is just simply titled, Welcome to May 11th, 2026. And it serves as this sort of intellectual lighthouse for a lot of people.
It does.
So our mission today, right, is to decode this really dense, sprawling portrait of a civilization that is just in the middle of a profound, unstoppable phase transition.
Yeah, a phase transition is exactly the right phrase for it. Because when you synthesize all the data points that Dr. Wisner-Gross provides here, you stop seeing, just isolated technology updates.
Right, they're not just gadgets anymore.
Exactly. You start seeing a singular driving force, and the thesis we are really exploring today is compounding.
Compounding, yeah.
Right. We are basically standing at the event horizon of a technological singularity, which means an advancement in one specialized field, say, like software optimization. It no longer stays isolated in that field.
It bleeds over.
It bleeds over immediately. It accelerates progress in power grids and orbital mechanics, fundamental biology. I mean, the walls between these disciplines haven't just cracked. They have completely fallen away.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to dive straight into the minds driving this compounding. The software itself is undergoing this radical metamorphosis. So, the dispatch notes that OpenAI is actively deprecating its fine-tuning API. They're giving customers until January 2027 to finish any new training jobs.
Yeah.
Let's just pause there for a second.
Yeah, that's a huge deal.
It's massive. For the last few years, fine-tuning was the absolute holy grail of artificial intelligence. It was literally the entire business model for, I don't know, thousands of startups.
Right, the whole AI wrapper economy.
Exactly. You take a smart baseline model and you train it on your specific company data to make it a specialist. So why on earth would the industry leader kill off the very tool that allows businesses to customize their AI?
What's fascinating here is that the underlying physics of how these models learn has, well, it's crossed a critical threshold.
Okay.
Historically, you built a generalist model, an AI that knew a little bit about everything but wasn't a true expert in anything.
Like a jack of all trades.
Exactly. And to make it useful for, say, analyzing dense legal contracts or diagnosing MRI scans, you had to manually adjust its internal weights. You basically had to physically force the neural network to prioritize specific types of data over others. But the deprecation of this API, it signals that the baseline models are simply becoming too competent right out of the box.
So the fine-tuning is just unnecessary now.
Essentially, yeah. Manually adjusting those internal weights is starting to yield diminishing returns because the model's native comprehension is already phenomenally high.
That fundamentally changes how we interact with these systems. I mean, in the past, fine-tuning an AI was like taking a generic block of clay and spending months physically carving it into the shape of a medical dictionary, right?
Right.
It was laborious. It required immense technical skill. But these new models, they aren't clay anymore. They are liquid.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
They instantly take the shape of whatever container you pour them into.
Yeah.
So the deprecation of the API just means we no longer have to carve the mold. And Sam Altman himself backed this up. He made a joke recently that GPT 5.5 is a genius, not just a generalist.
And that distinction, that is the linchpin of this entire discussion today.
Yeah. A generalist can retrieve information for you, but a genius can synthesize novel solutions to problems it has literally never seen before.
Which is terrifying and amazing.
Right. But here's the critical secondary effect of that. As these systems transition from generalists to autonomous geniuses, the infrastructure required to manage them has to radically evolve.
Because they're doing things on their own now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are moving away from tools that we use to agents that act on our behalf.
Yeah.
And when an agent has the autonomy to act, you encounter massive, massive problems with trust and verification.
Right, which brings us to the Cisco thing.
Yes. This is why Cisco has just released the open-source model Provenance kit.
Okay, yeah.
It is a system designed to track the metadata and the actual weights of an AI, effectively creating a model genome.
I have to ask about the mechanics of that because, for the listener, why do we need a DNA test for a piece of software?
We don't do that for Microsoft Word. We don't track the quote-unquote genome of our email servers. Why is it suddenly critical to audit the exact lineage of an AI model?
Because Microsoft Word doesn't wake up and decide to rewrite its own code.
Fair point, yeah.
These new AI models are entirely dynamic. When an AI begins acting autonomously in the digital ecosystem, say it's executing financial trades or managing corporate network security or even generating its own subprograms, you need an immutable record of its origins.
You have to know where it came from.
Exactly. You need to ensure its underlying architecture hasn't been maliciously tampered with, or that it hasn't, spawned from a rogue, undocumented server farm somewhere.
Wow.
If a model is going to have agency, society demands a cryptographic guarantee of its lineage. You have to know exactly who trained it, what data it ingested, and how its weights have evolved over time. The Model Provenance Kit provides that biological-style tracking, but for silicon mines.
And the need for that tracking, it becomes glaringly obvious when you look at what is happening on the open market right now.
Oh, with Hermes.
Yeah. Hermes Agent is currently sitting at #1 on the Open Router token rankings. It actually dethroned OpenClaw, which was a massive, massive favorite for a long time.
It was the industry standard.
Right. And the mechanism behind this victory is just wild, because OpenClaw relies on human users to manually write its skills. And it has to lean on an entirely different model, Opus, just to ensure it doesn't get hijacked by prompt injection attacks. But Hermes just generates its own skills on the fly.
Let's unpack the computational logic of what it actually means to generate a skill, because it's wild.
Please do.
When a traditional AI faces a novel problem, it searches its database for a pre-existing script. If it lacks the script, it just fails. It errors out.
Right. I cannot fulfill this request.
Exactly. But Hermes operates completely differently. When Hermes encounters a novel problem, it analyzes the constraints, and then it writes a net new piece of executable code to solve that specific problem.
Just writes it from scratch.
From scratch. It compiles it, tests it, and then integrates that successful code into its permanent toolset. It is essentially self-compiling logic.
That's incredible.
It's evolving its own software architecture in real time based on environmental pressure.
I mean, that is Darwinian evolution happening inside a server rack.
Yes.
And the output of that evolution is just staggering. We're seeing these standalone AI solutions tackle the Urdu's backlog.
Oh, the math problems.
Yeah, for anyone listening who isn't, deep into advanced mathematics, Paul Urdu's was this legendary, eccentric mathematician who left behind hundreds of incredibly difficult, unsolved mathematical problems.
Right, they've been open for decades.
Decades. And these aren't equations you can just crunch with a giant calculator. They require net new, creative leaps of pure human logic. The fact that AI is solving these means it isn't just predicting the next word in a sentence anymore. It is generating entirely new human knowledge.
It proves that the models have moved beyond pattern replication and into pattern creation. Synthesizing a mathematical proof requires a deep structural understanding of logic that human mathematicians have struggled with for half a century.
Yeah.
And the real paradigm shift happens when you take that autonomous creative logic and you unleash it into the open economy.
Which brings us back to that scenario from the dispatch. We are looking at a story about OpenAI's Codex mobile experience. Right?
Yes, the bounty hunting bot.
Yes. This allows the AI to run continuous background work. Someone gave this Codex bot an incredibly simple prompt. They just typed, "Go off and make me $5. Just go make $5."
Didn't give it a map, didn't tell it how.
Didn't ask clarifying questions at all. It just went out into the digital wild, scoured the internet for open source security bounties, found a vulnerability, filed a legitimate, fully coded pull request to fix it.
By itself.
Entirely by itself. It worked across various code audits for 22 straight hours, and it netted $16.88.
The mechanics of that event are a masterclass in autonomous agency.
It's terrifying.
It is. Think about the friction involved in that process for a human being.
Right.
You have to find the bounty platform. You have to evaluate your own skill set against the open problems. You have to understand the specific architecture of the target software, write the patch, navigate the highly specific administrative rules of filing a pull request.
This is a nightmare on its own.
Always.
Yeah.
And then you have to negotiate the payout. The AI performed every single one of those discrete steps flawlessly without human intervention.
But let's look at the terrifying economics of that.
Yeah.
Because $16.88 for a 22-hour shift,
Yeah.
that is roughly 76 cents an hour.
It's nothing.
If you view that through the lens of human labor, it is an atrocity. It's a completely unlivable wage. But from the perspective of a piece of software, it is an infinite return on investment. The electricity and compute cost to run that query is fractions of a penny. The software doesn't need to pay rent, it doesn't need health insurance, and it doesn't sleep. How does a human workforce compete in an economy where a highly skilled autonomous entity is thrilled to work a 22-hour shift for $16?
The brutal economic truth is that human labor cannot compete on those specific terms. It's just mathematically impossible.
Yeah.
When the marginal cost of high-level intellectual labor plummets to near zero, the entire structural foundation of our economy fractures. But, there is a massive hidden cost that your question kind of glosses over.
What's that?
Well, the software itself might not demand a living wage, but the physical infrastructure required to sustain its intelligence demands an unbelievable amount of raw physical energy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because all of these genius-level agents, all of these 22-hour shifts, and all of these self-compiling skills, they require a massive physical footprint.
Yes, they do.
The digital mind is expanding exponentially, but the physical body, our actual terrestrial infrastructure, is groaning under the weight of it.
Yeah.
The hardware wars are getting intensely physical.
Well, the silicon bottleneck.
Right. We see in the dispatch that AMD's ROCm software stack has improved by 75 times in just 14 days following the release of DeepSeek V4.
That stat is unbelievable.
They now only need a roughly 7.5 times improvement to catch NVIDIA's massive B200 chip. But hold on, let me push back here. A 75 times improvement in 2 weeks. Software does not just improve by 7,500% because of a regular patch.
No, it doesn't.
What physically changed in the code to allow that kind of massive leap?
This raises an important question because it highlights exactly how AI is compounding its own existence.
Okay, break that down.
When human engineers write the software, stack the RSCM that routes data through a silicon chip, they rely on human logic, which is inherently inefficient. They build bloated pathways.
Right, there's always legacy code and workarounds.
Exactly. What happened here is that an advanced AI model analyzed the ROCm architecture and completely reimagined the data routing. The AI isn't just deleting bad code.
So what is it doing?
It is finding mathematically perfect, multidimensional pathways through the physical silicon architecture that a human brain simply cannot visualize.
Wow.
So that 7,500% improvement isn't magic. It is the instantaneous removal of decades of human inefficiency. The AI is optimizing the very physical constraints that limit the AI.
But even with perfectly optimized silicon, you still have to plug that silicon into a wall somewhere.
Yeah, you do.
And this is where the global tension is hitting a boiling point. I want you, the listener, to visualize your own monthly utility bill right now. Just keep that number in your head for a second.
Good luck with that.
Right. Now consider a formal complaint filed with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERI, by Maryland's Office of People's Counsel. They are actively fighting a $2 billion ratepayer tab for massive grid upgrades. $2 billion. And why? Because those upgrades are entirely to service out-of-state data centers. They are claiming a breach of the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. So we have a literal grandmother in Maryland whose electricity bill is spiking by double digits to pay for a $1 billion grid upgrade, just so a hyperscale data center 3 states over can keep a fleet of AI coders hustling for $16 security bounties.
It perfectly encapsulates the collision between hyperscale technological ambition and localized economic reality.
You're crazy.
It is. The hyperscalers companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, their energy demands no longer resemble corporate needs. They resemble the baseload requirements of small industrialized nations.
Literally.
When you drop a massive gigawatt-scale data center into a region, it instantly drains the local grid. The utility companies have to build entirely new substations and transmission lines, and the cost of that capital expenditure is traditionally passed down to the local ratepayer. We are entering an era where the energy demands of artificial superintelligence are actively distorting local civic economies.
And it is not just local municipalities feeling the strain. It is sovereign nations.
Oh, the Kenya story.
Yes, look at what is happening in Kenya. Microsoft and G42 planned a massive $1 billion geothermal data center there.
Which is a brilliant idea, technically.
It would have been an engineering marvel,
Hmm.
tapping directly into the Earth's heat. But the project is entirely stalled. The president of Kenya came out and explicitly stated that the payment guarantees required by the tech companies actually exceed the nation's total financial resources.
Let that sink in.
A single data center initiative by two corporations literally dwarfed the financial backing of an entire country.
From a purely macroeconomic perspective, this is a watershed moment. Sovereign nations are being forced to calculate whether they can physically afford to host the infrastructure of the future.
And if they can't,
Well, the hyperscalers are essentially demanding sovereign-level financial guarantees because the infrastructure required to cool and power these chips is just so expensive. And when sovereign nations balk at the cost, or when local ratepayers in Maryland sue to stop the grid upgrades, the hyperscalers don't just stop building.
they can't stop.
Right. They simply look for alternative paths, no matter how precarious those paths are.
Precarious doesn't even begin to cover it, honestly. The dispatch notes that U.S. hyperscalers are currently routing their Gulf data center traffic via fiber optic cables strung alongside crude oil pipelines by an Iraqi telecom company.
It's wild.
Just picture that physical reality for a moment.
Yeah.
The ultimate, pristine 21st century resource fiber optic data carrying the weight of artificial superintelligence is physically zip-tied to the ultimate dirty 20th century resource crude oil pipelines.
Right.
And they're running directly through active geopolitical conflict zones.
It is a stunning visual metaphor, but it is also a massive vulnerability.
Oh, absolutely.
We often talk about the cloud as if it is this ethereal, magical space above our heads. But the cloud is profoundly, vulnerably physical. It relies on thousands of miles of glass, steel, and copper.
Yeah.
The demand for bandwidth and compute is so voracious, so entirely unyielding, that hyperscalers will willingly route their most precious data through literal war zones if it is the only way to bypass terrestrial bottlenecks.
But compounding means that every massive problem also forces a massive parallel solution.
Right, exactly.
Because the energy demand is so intense, it is single-handedly jump-starting completely unrelated supply chains. The dispatch highlights the nuclear fusion supply chain. We don't even have commercial fusion power yet, but the sheer gravitational pull of the AI industry's future energy needs is forcing the mass production of high-temperature superconducting wire.
Which is a huge breakthrough.
Production is projected to scale from 5,000 kilometers to 1.5 million kilometers over the next 15 years.
Let's examine the mechanics of superconducting wire because people might not realize how big a deal this is.
Yeah, lay it out for us.
Traditional copper wire loses a significant amount of electricity as heat over long distances. You lose a lot of the power you generate just moving it. Superconducting wire, when it's chilled, transmits electricity with zero electrical resistance, zero loss.
Wow.
Scaling production to 1.5 million kilometers utterly collapses the cost curve of this exotic material. And the knock-on effects of that are world-changing.
Like what?
Long before we ever plug a fusion reactor into the grid, cheap superconducting wire will revolutionize everyday medical imaging. It will make MRI machines exponentially more powerful, smaller, and cheaper. It will allow us to rewire existing municipal grids to carry twice the power without laying new conduit.
That's incredible.
The artificial intelligence industry's desperate thirst for power is inadvertently solving massive bottlenecks in global medical and electrical engineering.
But let's be real. Even with 1.5 million kilometers of perfect zero-resistance wire, you still have the NMBYs. You still have the Maryland grandmothers fighting rate hikes, and the Kenyan government stalling on guarantees, and the sheer geopolitical risk of Iraqi pipelines. If the ground cannot support the infrastructure, the hyperscalers only have one direction left to build.
Yep, they have to look up.
Which completely explains SpaceX's latest pivot. SpaceX has officially filed the trademark for SpaceX AI.
There it is.
And looking at the specific filings, this isn't just a branding exercise for their rockets. The trademark covers satellite-based data centers, orbital computing, and AI for managing space-based platforms.
Literally the cloud.
Literally the cloud. We have used the phrase cloud computing metaphorically for a decade, but this is taking it completely literally. We are taking the massive data centers out of Maryland, pulling them away from the oil pipelines and launching them into low Earth orbit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the physics of orbital silicon are undeniably attractive.
Why is that? I mean, it sounds expensive.
It is, but when you build a data center in space, you instantly solve the two greatest bottlenecks limiting AI today: power and cooling.
Oh, of course.
In the right orbit, you have access to unfiltered, uninterrupted solar power 24 hours a day. And the vacuum of space acts as the ultimate infinite heat sink for massive compute clusters.
Because keeping these things cold on Earth takes millions of gallons of water.
Exactly. Crucially, you completely bypass the terrestrial grid and all its political baggage. You aren't arguing with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission over ratepayer protections. You are processing the data in orbit and beaming the synthesized results directly down to localized ground stations.
And the delivery mechanism to make this a reality isn't a pipe dream. It's sitting on a launch pad right now.
Starship.
Starship V3 is fully stacked for the first time and is ready to lift this exact payload. The raw tonnage capacity of Starship utterly destroys the old economics of spaceflight. Lifting heavy data center racks into orbit is suddenly financially viable.
It changes everything.
But AI isn't just going to orbit to sit in a server rack and process human emails. It is actively turning its gaze outward. The dispatch notes that machine learning models have just identified 10,000 new exoplanet candidates from test images.
10,000.
10,000 new worlds, specifically focusing on worlds orbiting incredibly faint stars.
The mechanism behind this discovery ties perfectly back to our earlier discussion about Hermes and the shift to autonomous genius.
Yeah, so.
The Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, it stares at patches of sky and records the microscopic dimming of stars when a planet passes in front of them. It generates mountains of incredibly noisy image data.
Right, it's just static, mostly.
Mostly static. Human astronomers and even the best algorithms from 5 years ago missed these 10,000 potential worlds because the signal-to-noise ratio was just too low. The stars were simply too faint.
So the AI just filtered it.
Better than that. These new genius-level neural networks can parse multidimensional datasets simultaneously. They can filter out the cosmic noise and detect a fraction of a percent dip in starlight. The AI's perceptive capabilities are now so acute that they are revealing 10,000 new worlds that were fundamentally invisible to us before.
It is the ultimate expansion of the human horizon. But, I have to point out the deeply eerie contrast here.
Oh, the Razorback.
Yeah, because while AI is peacefully charting 10,000 new worlds in the dark of space, it is simultaneously being deployed in incredibly violent ways back down on Earth. The dispatch highlights this development from Utah's Hypercraft. They have launched something called the Razorback.
Yeah.
This is an autonomous combat vehicle, weighs 2,400 pounds. It can navigate autonomously for 280 miles on a single charge.
Incredible engineering.
It is. But it exports 38 kilowatts of raw power to run directed energy weapons, charge drone swarms, and sustain forward command posts. And the most terrifying detail, there's absolutely no human being inside it.
The Razorback is the physical manifestation of the autonomous software agents we discussed in the first section.
Like the Codex bot, but with lasers.
Essentially, yes. Think about the computational load required to drive a 2,400-pound machine across 280 miles of rugged, unmapped, hostile terrain.
It's massive.
It requires real-time visual processing, dynamic route optimization, and threat assessment, all without a human hand on the steering wheel. Furthermore, that 38 kilowatts of exportable power solves the energy distribution problem we discussed earlier.
Right. It's its own grid.
The Razorback doesn't need to connect to a fragile terrestrial grid. It operates as a mobile, autonomous microgrid for a digital battlefield.
So what does this all mean? It feels like we are watching society manifest its highest aspirations and its deepest anxieties simultaneously.
That's a great way to put it.
We are using boundless superintelligence to map the cosmos, and we are using the exact same underlying architecture to build a 2,400-pound autonomous death machine that roams the Earth, acting as a mobile charging station for war drones.
That is the defining characteristic of a general-purpose technology, drastically amplified by the speed of compounding. The algorithm does not have a moral compass.
Right.
It only has an objective function. The intelligence that decodes the faint light of a distant star is mathematically identical to the intelligence that tracks a target on a battlefield.
And as this intelligence looks outward to the stars and outward to the battlefield, It is also applying that massive processing power backward in time.
Yes, the historical data.
It is unearthing deeply buried historical data. This brings us to a part of the dispatch that, honestly, it feels like a science fiction thriller, but it is rooted entirely in data processing. The text plainly states, superintelligence is making hidden agents shallow.
That's a very specific phrase.
It is, and it points directly to the White House launching the historic Peer Sue initiative.
We need to unpack the phrase hidden agents shallow because it describes a profound shift in the cryptography of secrets.
Okay, what does that mean?
What Dr. Wisner-Grace is articulating is that in an era where AI can synthesize millions of data points instantly, track model genomes, and spot microscopic anomalies in astronomical data, the concept of a massive long-term government secret becomes technologically and mathematically untenable.
I want to be incredibly careful here.
Sure.
The topic of UAP's unidentified anomalous phenomena, it often veers immediately into tinfoil hat conspiracy territory.
Oh, instantly.
Right. So we are maintaining strict neutrality here. We are not debating the existence of aliens. What we are discussing is a massive milestone in data transparency driven purely by technological leverage. For instance, the dispatch notes that Representative Burleson asked the MIT Lincoln Lab to preserve a 1952 reel-to-reel tape tied to early federal UAP investigation.
Exactly. Remove the mythology and just look at the data structure. A physical magnetic tape from 1952 is essentially an analog silo.
Yeah.
For decades, it was completely secure because the background noise was too high, the audio was degraded, and the sheer human labor required to cross-reference that tape with other data was impossible.
It would take an army of archivists.
Right. But today, you feed that 1952 audio into the kind of genius-level LLMs we discussed earlier. The AI doesn't just clean up the audio, it instantly isolates frequencies, identifies background mechanical hums, and cross-references those specific timestamps with digitized radar logs, commercial flight manifests, and meteorological data from that exact day in 1952.
It destroys the analog silo.
Completely destroys it. You cannot hide historical data from an intelligence designed specifically to find patterns in noise.
It completely reframes how we look at history. I mean, how much raw data is just sitting in government archives around the world right now?
Petabytes of it.
Thousands of blurry photographs, erratic sensor readouts, mumbled audio recordings that were previously considered completely useless because human analysts couldn't decipher them. But now we have an LLM acting as a universal translator for historical static. And it seems the government is keenly aware that their ability to obfuscate is collapsing because the dispatch notes the Pentagon reportedly plans to release another 46 UAP videos next week at the request of Representative Luna. And Representative Burchett is openly claiming that the first Pursue drop was just the tip of the iceberg.
The Pursue initiative is an acknowledgement of a new reality. The technological leverage has entirely shifted from the state to the algorithm.
Wow.
The past is being digitized, synthesized, and analyzed with a clarity that was computationally impossible even 5 years ago. A 20th century secret simply cannot survive in a 21st century data processing environment.
And the incredible thing is, AI isn't just decoding the mysteries of government vaults or the faint light of exoplanets. It is finally turning its massive analytical power toward the oldest, most complex, and most deeply personal system right here on Earth: fundamental biology.
This is where it gets really hopeful.
It is. Amidst all the talk of orbital silicon and autonomous combat vehicles, this dispatch takes a profoundly grounded turn. It notes that Great Lakes river otters are actively recovering from the brink after decades of cross-border conservation efforts.
Which is amazing news.
It is, and it highlights a recent discovery that plant seeds can actually sense the vibrations of falling raindrops, and they wake from their dormancy in response to that specific vibration.
Those two data points are critical grounding elements. They remind us that biology is, at its core, the original and most dense information processing system.
Right. The seed sensing the raindrops sounds like pure nature poetry, but let's look at the mechanics of it. It is actually an organic algorithm.
Yes.
It is a biological if-then statement written by nature. If specific vibration frequency equals raindrop, then initiate waking protocol.
That is a flawless analogy. Biological life operates on incredibly complex algorithmic triggers. And the reason this is so relevant today is that our artificial intelligence models are finally becoming sophisticated enough to parse and manipulate those biological algorithms.
Which brings us to MIT.
Yes. This brings us to a revolutionary development out of MIT, the release of Fingers 7B. This is described as the first AI foundation model specifically built for Alzheimer's prevention.
Let's pause right there because the mechanics of that are wild. We have been conducting medical research on Alzheimer's for decades.
With billions of dollars.
Billions. So what makes a foundation model fundamentally different from the way a team of human doctors studies the disease?
Traditional medical research operates in highly specialized, isolated silos. You have a team of geneticists studying DNA. You have a team of clinicians observing lifestyle and diet. And you have a team studying proteomic data, which is the incredibly complex study of how millions of proteins fold and interact within the human body.
Right.
Human brains cannot cross-reference a patient's dietary habits against the real-time folding mechanics of millions of individual proteins. It is too much data.
It's beyond human scale.
Exactly. Finger 7b shatters those silos. As a foundation model, it ingests lifestyle, clinical, genomic, and proteomic data from tens of thousands of at-risk individuals and synthesizes it all simultaneously.
Incredible.
It is the genius model applied to human disease. It maps the entire multidimensional structure of a human life to predict exactly when and how cognitive decline will trigger, allowing for highly targeted prevention before the physical damage occurs.
It is literally patching our biological source code. We are using massive compounding compute power to map the proteomic folding of the human brain to save our own minds.
Yeah.
And Dr. Wisner-Gross contextualizes this beautifully because the dispatch notes he previously wrote about the first multi-behavior brain upload back in March, we are seeing a definitive, undeniable trend toward the complete digitization of biology. We're preserving the natural algorithms of the otters and the seeds, and we are using superintelligence to preserve human cognition.
The boundary between the biological and the digital is becoming porous. If you can mathematically model the proteomic data of tens of thousands of people to prevent Alzheimer's, you are laying the foundational computational groundwork for understanding human consciousness itself as a quantifiable data structure.
That's a huge leap, but it makes sense.
Intelligence is being utilized to patch the biosphere and human cognition simultaneously.
But if we follow the logic of compounding, if AI can map our genes, rewrite our health, and digitize our biology, it is undeniably going to rewrite the very structure of our society.
Oh, it already is.
It is going to fundamentally rewrite our money, our labor, and the daily reality of our lives. The economic indicators in the final section of this dispatch are nothing short of a massive societal earthquake.
The shift in capital allocation is staggering, particularly regarding the dynamic between the software models and the physical hardware they run on.
The numbers are mind-bending. The dispatch states that OpenAI and Anthropic are projected to end 2026 with a combined annual recurring revenue, ARR, that actually exceeds NVIDIA's total revenue from the previous year.
Which is insane.
It is. Furthermore, Alphabet briefly overtook NVIDIA in market cap. Let's really analyze the significance of that. For the past 3 years, the undisputed narrative was that the only sure winners in the AI gold rush were the companies making the hardware, the picks and shovels.
Right.
NVIDIA was king because everyone, everywhere needed their silicon chips to train the models.
But if the software companies OpenAI and Anthropic are now generating more recurring revenue than the hardware giant that physically enables them, it means the fundamental value of the economy has shifted entirely up the stack.
Okay, unpack that.
The autonomous models, the geniuses we discussed in Section 1, have become demonstrably more valuable than the rare earth metals and silicon they sit on. The application of the intelligence is now dwarfing the raw material required to generate it. It is a transition from a resource-based tech economy to a pure intelligence-based economy.
And massive capital is reacting to this shift with blinding speed. The dispatch notes that capital is quite literally voting with its feet. Billionaire tax refugees are fleeing traditional tech hubs and flocking to Inclined Village at Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, the text notes that Tahoe is increasingly being known as the nicest San Francisco neighborhood.
From an impartial macroeconomic view, this is a classic symptom of rapid wealth generation colliding with shifting regulatory environments.
Right, they want to keep the money.
Exactly. The individuals capitalizing on this massive compounding of AI wealth are physically relocating to jurisdictions designed to protect newly generated capital. It is a massive physical migration of wealth driven entirely by a digital algorithmic boom.
But while the billionaires are fleeing to the mountains of Tahoe, the reality for the everyday workforce is infinitely more volatile. The foundation of human labor is completely reshuffling.
Yeah, the journalism story.
Inside traditional newsrooms, McClatchy journalists are officially withholding their bylines from AI-spun articles. It is such a desperate, deeply human protest. It is a strike of identity against a machine that frankly does not care who gets the credit. They are trying to draw a hard ethical line between human-crafted synthesis and machine-generated content in a space where words are being mass-produced by algorithms.
It is a profound crisis of provenance. Much like the AI models requiring a Cisco model provenance kit to prove their origins and ensure they haven't been tampered with, these human journalists are fighting to maintain their own provenance.
Right.
They are fighting to prove that human thought still holds distinct value. But the labor disruption we are seeing goes far deeper than journalistic bylines.
It does. And I want to address you, the listener, directly on this next point because it represents a massive, incredibly uncomfortable societal shift that we have to look straight in the eye.
It's a tough one.
The dispatch explicitly states that women currently hold 83% of the 15 most AI-vulnerable jobs, despite making up only 47% of the overall workforce. The author specifies that this vulnerability is concentrated in surveilled and algorithmically managed work. Why is this disparity so brutally sharp? Why are women disproportionately in the crosshairs of this specific wave of AI automation?
It is a critical structural question about how our society has historically organized labor. For decades, a massive portion of administrative, clerical, data entry, and mid-level organizational roles have been disproportionately filled by women.
Okay.
These are the exact types of jobs that involve processing routine information, managing schedules, reconciling accounts, and handling predictable communication.
The day-to-day operations.
Exactly. These tasks are highly, almost perfectly susceptible to automation by the genius language models and autonomous agents we discussed earlier.
Wow.
Think back to the Codex agent that autonomously navigated a complex pull request to earn a $16 bounty. If an agent can do that, it can certainly manage an inbox, process routine HR claims, or handle corporate data entry flawlessly.
Right.
The structural, historical inequities of the 20th century labor market are colliding violently with the autonomous capabilities of 21st century AI, resulting in this devastating 83% vulnerability metric. The economic future is arriving rapidly, but it is being distributed incredibly unevenly.
And while this massive economic reshuffling is upending millions of lives, the actual security of our digital infrastructure is under constant autonomous siege. The text points out that AI is now aggressively playing both sides of the cybersecurity stack.
Oh, the Experian data.
Yes, Experian serviced 5,000 corporate data breaches last year. Out of those 5,000 breaches, a staggering 40% were AI-powered.
This is the dark, inevitable mirror to the autonomous Codex agent. If an AI can be prompted to go make me $5 by finding a legitimate security bounty and writing a patch, an AI with its ethical guardrails removed can just as easily be prompted to go find a vulnerability in this corporate database, extract the customer records, and route them to an encrypted server.
Which is terrifying.
We are seeing autonomous models weaponized at incredible scale. The barrier to entry for launching a highly sophisticated, multi-vector cyber attack has plummeted to near zero because the AI handles the complex coding and execution natively.
Anyone can do it now.
Anyone. The human defenders cannot possibly type fast enough to stop it. They must rely on their own AI to predict and counter the attacks, creating a hyper-accelerated machine-to-machine arms race where human reaction time is completely irrelevant.
And the most sobering takeaway from this entire deep dive is that absolutely nothing seems to be able to stop this momentum. Not the physical limitations of the power grid, not the financial pushback of sovereign nations, and not even deliberate heavy-handed government intervention.
Nope.
The dispatch concludes by noting a major geopolitical event. Tehran experienced a record 70-day internet blackout.
70 days.
A major global capital completely severed its connection to the digital world for over 2 months. And yet, the author notes, it couldn't slow the world's compounding by even a fraction.
That is the ultimate undeniable validation of Dr. Wisner-Gross's overarching thesis. Compounding, the only constant is compounding. A 70-day internet blackout in a major region is a catastrophic, localized event for the people living there.
Absolutely.
But the global decentralized network of superintelligence simply routed around it. While Tehran was dark, the models continued to optimize their hardware. Starship prepared for orbital silicon, algorithms mapped 10,000 new exoplanets, Finger 7b mapped human proteins, and the economic structure of the world was quietly rewritten.
It just kept going.
The technological momentum is unstoppable, entirely decentralized, and compounding every single second.
It leaves us in a profoundly altered state of reality. We have journeyed today from artificial minds outgrowing their training wheels to 2,400-pound autonomous combat vehicles. We've seen the digital decoding of 1952 UAP tapes and the mathematical mapping of the human mind to cure Alzheimer's. And through it all, this relentless, unyielding drumbeat of compounding.
It's a lot to process.
It is. Which brings me to a final lingering thought. I want to leave you with something for you to mull over that builds on the very foundation of what we've unpacked today. Early on, we spent a lot of time discussing Cisco's Model Provenance Kit.
Right, the AI genome.
Exactly. We talked about how society desperately needs a way to track an AI's DNA, to prove its origins, and to ensure it hasn't been tampered with or spawned from some rogue source. It is mathematically necessary because the AI is becoming so autonomous, so creative, and so utterly indistinguishable from human output.
Yes.
But if an artificial intelligence now requires a biological concept like a genome to prove its authenticity, how long until humans require a human provenance kit?
Oh, wow.
In a world where autonomous agents are coding complex software while we sleep, where algorithms are mass-producing the news articles we read, and where AI-powered breaches are flawlessly simulating human behavior to bypass corporate security, how will you, the listener, prove that your thoughts, your work, and your identity are genuinely yours? When the machines become geniuses, how will you prove that you are not just the polished output of a compounding algorithm?
It is a haunting, beautiful question. As the digital and biological worlds merge entirely, proving our own fundamental humanity might become the single most complex puzzle we face as a species. Thank you for navigating this incredible, dense landscape with me today. It has been a truly profound journey.
The outro music is by Rainbow, our resident 6 android girl band from near-future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called New Orbit. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.
Make my ngất SpaceX hawk bùa tình anh này hô cắt bọc nhom cho lơ đầm bóp té mơ nhom cho lơ đầm bóp té mơแต่lơ khơi cay sắp này mất vơ cho mình pan đây mạch mua tình anh này nơi còn long aka group krong ដែលក្បាលម៉ាស៊ីនគ្មានវិញ្ញាណបណ្ដាញថាមកពិភពលោកដានទាំងខ្លាំងចរន្តអាគីនេះคล้ายជាអាវុធនយោបាយលែងត្រូវការដៃមនុស្សមកកាន់ចង្កូតកម្មវិធីឆ្លាតវៃដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាធំៗពីការដុតធ្យូងថ្មដល់ទៅលាការ digital លុយហូរចូលកានីពេលខ្ញុំកំពុងដេកជំនាញឯកទេសត្រូវជំនួសដោយកូដ software ខ្លាំងជាងដែកថែមនឹងគ្រឿងចក្រភ្នាក់ងារស្វ័យប្រវត្តិកំពុងកាន់កាប់ផ្សារវាស្ទង់ដង្ហើមផែនដីនឹងព្រៃឈើតាមដានវត្ថុចម្លែកដែលហោះលើមេឃអ្វីៗទាំងអស់ស្ថិតក្នុងកណ្ដាប់ដៃយ៉ៃវាជាពិភពថ្មីដែលគ្មានមនុស្សបង្កគ្មានមនុស្សបង្ក SpaceX បានផ្លូវទៅកាន់កាយឆ្ងាយទៅកាន់កាយឆ្ងាយបញ្ញាសិប្បនិយមក្រុមជោគវាសនាជីវិតជីថរនៅក្រៅផែនដីវិវាទអគិសនីដោះស្រាយតាមក្បួនច្បាប់ថ្មីម៉ាស៊ីនវិភាគទិន្នន័យក្នុងវិនាទីគ្មានការយឺតគ្មានការយោគយល់សេដ្ឋកិច្ចពិភពលោកប្រែប្រួលលឿនស្លើយពីមុនយើងលក់កម្លាំងបាយយកលុយឥឡូវយើងលក់ក្បួនដកស្រាយបញ្ហាប្រព័ន្ធអេកូស៊ីភ្ជាប់ជាមួយបច្ចេកវិទ្យាសម្បីតែដើមឈើក៏មានលេខសម្គាល់សម្បីតែដើមឈើក៏មានលេខសម្គាល់ការតាមដានអួតកាន់តែច្បាស់លាស់ផុសដល់លេខឡើងតាមរយៈកញ្ចក់ភ្នែកម៉ាស៊ីនសង្គ្រាមត្រជាក់ក្នុងលំហអាកាសចាប់ផ្ដើមសង្គ្រាមត្រជាក់ក្នុងលំហអាកាសចាប់ផ្ដើមដណ្ដើមយកតំបន់ផ្ទុកដីល្អបំផុតបញ្ញាខ្ពស់បំផុតមានឥទ្ធិពលលើច្បាប់គ្រប់គ្រងការប្រើភ្លើងលើច្បាប់គ្រប់គ្រងការប្រើភ្លើងតាមផ្ទះយើងគ្រាន់តែជាអ្នកសង្កេតការម្នាក់មើលការវិវត្តនៃយុគសម័យយន្តកម្មវាជាពិភពថ្មីដែលគ្មានមនុស្សបង្កSpaceX បានផ្លូវទៅកាន់កាយឆ្ងាយទៅកាន់កាយឆ្ងាយបញ្ញាសិប្បនិយមក្រុមជោគវាសនាជីវិតជីថរនៅក្រៅផែនដីស្វ័យប្រវត្តិពេញលេញគ្មានការឈប់សម្រាកមេឃលែងនៅឆ្ងាយទៀតហើយចប់ហើយយុគសម័យចាស់ចប់ហើយ